If you want to see the whole video in a single file, like, subscribe, and check out my full-size videos on my channel page. If you want to see the whole video in a single file, like, subscribe, and check out my full-size videos on my channel page. If you want to see the whole video in a single file, like, subscribe, and check. So today I'm going to tell you about a prayer that I was invited to pray for my ex-wife to contact me so I could tell her, again, what I call Jesus stories. This is the story that happened unbeknownst to me at the time, that was unfolding before my eyes. So I decided to take a trip to Lake Travis from San Angelo, going down through Brady. I ended up talking to my parents about, how prepared I was for this trip. Like, I had hooked the boat up the night before. I had gassed up the truck the night before. I had packed all my bag and put it in the car the night before. I had put all my fishing rods and, batten down the hatches basically with everything I would need. The only thing I was not able to get before I left was a marine battery, and that comes in a little while. So I went ahead and got up the next morning and again was like just astonished because I'm usually not that much of a planner. I kind of just throw things together and go and can live in the moment. So I remember making that astonishment to my parents about how much more prepared I was this time than normally. So I got in the truck and I started driving down to Brady. I was listening to the radio at that time. We didn't really have digital, so we were listening to the FM radio. That was kind of our option. And as I go along, it starts cutting out, and I switch over to AM radio. I'm getting down close to Brady, if I recall. And it switched over to AM radio because my dad had said once before, and it kind of went through my brain, saying, "Hey, AM radio will carry further because the way the signal goes, that you can get it out in the country a lot better." And so I was going past the Walmart there in Brady, which I'll put a little picture up from Google Maps. To check to see if they had this marine battery that I wanted. It was quite large size because I thought, well, I'm driving by there, I'll go ahead and stop there. So I stopped, and sure enough, they had it. So I picked one up, put it in the boat, and headed on back out to Lake Travis. Coming outside of Brady, I turned on Highway 71. When I started flipping through the AM stations trying to find something, and the guy on the radio talk show was saying, "I'm interviewing a guy today talking about how how David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear." And so I thought, oh, that is so cool, because I've always wanted to see that. But this is the next best thing, is actually, knowing how he did it. I went ahead and started listening to it, and I was really interested because understand that way back when I started this journey to see if God was real, or I don't know what you want to call it, when I had asked God to make himself known to me, I had went ahead and tried to make the right decision. Let me just say, the night before, or the night that was going to be on the television, I had a Christian event that happened. So I decided that I would go to the Christian event, and I thought, well, I could set up the VCR. That's back when we had VCR. We had little dip switches, they called them. Woo, okay, that got crazy. Got little dip switches that I called them, that to set up the time for the DVR or for the VCR. And it's kind of hard to do, so I had missed it. I never got to see it. So all this time I've been interested in that. And so I thought, well, this is great. I'll listen to this guy. So as I'm listening to him and I get a little further out of town, the AM radio starts cutting out. And again, through my brain, just came through my brain, the words of my dad talking about AM radio signal. He was a telephone radio engineer. And he had told me that if you pull over, the signal will come in better and not be moving. It tends to work better. And so I thought, well, that's really interesting. So I tried to find a flat spot on the side of the road because I got this, truck and boat. And it was a 2-lane road, very narrow. It didn't have any kind of extra pavement off to the side. Had quite a few little not bridge, but guardrails along the side, but I didn't want to stop on one of those. So I waited till I found one of those, and I believe I found a close to spot to kind of explain what the scene looked like. And I'll put it on the picture. Maybe I'll be showing it right now. And it was this long stretch of road in front of me, and I pulled over on the side of the road and I parked the truck, and the radio was coming in great. But all of a sudden, without really thinking about it, I'm just staring. It's like my ears shut off. If you've been so focused on something that your ears completely shut off, you don't hear what's being said or anything, even though that was the whole point of why I stopped. I had been on the side of the road for less than 1 minute when I'm staring down the road, and I'm staring. There's like 4 or 5 cars. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't the first car. It wasn't the last car. I remember a truck being like the second one maybe, and I was staring at like the 4th car or something, and I'm just following it as it's getting closer to me, and you'll see the picture there. It's quite a distance coming at me, and it's really odd to be staring at that 4th object, which was a smaller car, but I couldn't tell what it was. It was too far away. And as it gets closer and closer and I follow it, it passes me by. And I look and I went, no way. It was my ex-wife. I knew her car. It was an Isuzu Impulse. And she goes flying by and I'm like, no way. And all of a sudden, the next thing I know, she's turned around, pulled over in front of me and starting to get out of the car. And I looked at it and I said, oh my goodness. And all these little idiosyncrasies that had happened, little specific things that I've been prepared for a 1-minute window on the side of the road, listening to how David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear. And I'm staring at her and I start laughing because God has such a sense of humor that he's actually making one of these stories happen while my desire was to share these stories with her. And of course I fell over in the car. I'm laughing so hard. And my dog's looking at me like, what are you doing? Well, she starts getting out of the car and sees me fall over in the truck, my head, boom. And I was like, no way. And she basically came back to there like, are you okay? Are you all right? And I said, well, yeah, I'm fine. And I couldn't catch my breath because I was laughing. And she goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, you're not going to believe this, but I've been praying, asking God to have you contact me so I could share my Jesus stories. And then here I am out in the middle of nowhere on the side of the road in a 1-minute window, and you drive up. And she's like, what's going on? I mean, I don't remember exactly what she said, but it wasn't important. But she's like, and I said, we got to talk. And so she said, okay. So we met in town and we sat down at a restaurant, maybe at Dairy Queen, I don't remember. But we sat there and I shared with her for several hours. Her and I talked and all this. And she was just, I don't know what she was, but she obviously knew something had happened. I was very rocked and very emotional, as you can imagine. And I want to explain again, this is basically a God moment, God revealing himself to me. Again, not the event is irrelevant. It's the fact that he gave me what to pray and intercede according to God's will by his Holy Spirit to actually make it happen, to let me pray. And what I say, it's a faith. Faith is a noun. It's an object. It's a gift of faith. It's the ability to believe and not doubt. And I had that, and I didn't fully understand what that was, but it was normal to me. Anyway, we talked and everything. People thought, they tried to tell me as I told this story, probably thousands of times, I would think, or at least 1,000 times. And they would, try to tell me things about, God telling me that you're going to get back together and all that. Well, I could tell you that, I knew, why would God not just tell me? And it did not happen. But she knew that day. And I'll tell you why, because sometime after, it was quite some time, I'd asked God, I needed to start remembering the dates and everything on some of these stories. And one day when I had moved back home, like I said, I was going to school. My mom and dad were going somewhere, and they said, "Do you want to come with us?" And I said, "Sure." So they're getting ready to go out in the car, and all of a sudden, I've just got this overwhelming urge. Again, not anything that I knew was happening, but I decided to weed out my file cabinet. And I'm like, why am I wheeling out my file cabinet? But I couldn't really stop myself. I was just like, gotta look through things and get rid of things that aren't important in my file cabinet. And my mom and dad they're almost to the point of waiting in the car for me. And I'm like, well, I'll be right there, just a minute. And I'm going through and I pick up and I find my, the receipt for the battery. And the receipt for the battery was, I believe it was August 5th of the day that it happened, because you keep a battery receipt for the warranty. So I'd kept that receipt. So I was like, God answered the prayer of me asking what the date was. And I was like overjoyed, because I go back in, I show my parents, and they're like, "David, that is so cool. This is something my parents had prayed for me for, to turn my life over to Christ in a real way, and not having really understanding how far it was going to go." Anyway, again, a week or two later, I don't remember exactly, I was going through the rest of my file cabinet, and I came across my divorce decree. And I realized that my divorce was on August 5th of the previous year, that this event happened on the side of the road. And I was like, that's no coincidence. And of course, she probably knew that. I don't remember dates real well. And so she probably knew that day. That was the 1-year anniversary of the day our divorce was final. And I was just like, God, you are so amazing. You even answered the 2 prayers and did it differently, just to show yourself to me. And honestly, that is the coolest thing, because sometimes there's so many little stories that are so specific to me. But ever since I really started sharing Christ with people and what they call walking in the Spirit. I know that sounds ridiculous, because I remember thinking, gosh, what a bunch of religious weirdos, the way they come out with all these phrases. But I really don't have any way to explain it other than that. And when I go back through the scriptures and I hear about other people that have, I realize that's God revealing himself to them. Kind of like when Moses was told that, when he was taking the Israelites through the desert, he was told by God, go on, I'll give you the battle, it's all cool, but I'm not going to go down with you, because his people were being rebellious, if I remember it, at that time. But Moses said, no, God, don't send us unless you're going to go with us, because his presence was better than his protection. And it's what Moses wanted, because he was a friend of God. And I look at the scriptures of what does it mean to be a friend of God. It's not just because I'm saved. It's because I'm doing at a heart level what he said about yielding to the Holy Spirit and then keeping in step with that Spirit and doing the simple things that I would just live. I was just living when this happened. I didn't have any way of knowing what was going to happen. I wasn't asking God to do things like this. I wanted God to show himself to me. But the most important thing he did during that time was inside here. Created me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. And that is what I had prayed originally, and started, seeking God, to use the religious term, not understanding what that meant, telling God I don't understand what that means, but I'm going to try to do the right thing when nobody's looking, and I'm not going to tell anybody I did, and I'm not going to, I'm going to tell the story when it happens. So I've told that story. It's my gift of faith, and I cast it down to him as an offering, and that maybe you can be blessed by it and realize you want a stronger relationship with Christ, an actual personal one, not just somebody telling me it's personal. I think that's a big difference. And I love everybody, so I hope you enjoy this story. If you're seeing parts of this story, please go back to the playlist or go to my full videos and watch the whole thing.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like for more.